All right, gentlemen, in this video I'm going to show you how to store your small engines over the winter. I'm going to use my snowblower for this particular example. This is exactly the same for a lawnmower. So you do your lawnmower obviously in the fall when you've done cutting the lawn, and in the spring don't need the snowblower, of course, after the snow's gone, so we're going to go ahead and store this. Now the reason why you want to do this, guys, is if you don't, you can run up with all kinds of issues with your carburetors, corrosion in the engine. One of the other things that ends up happening is if you don't use a fuel stabilizer, you can end up with fluid in your fuel. Now, most people don't know this, but like gasoline goes bad over time. You can't keep gas in your car for a year or 2 years. Same thing with a small motor. If you store it over the winter, the fuel that's in the small tank will go bad over the winter, or it could collect water, condensation, that sort of stuff. So really, there's only a couple of very simple steps that you need. You're going to need, and products that you're going to need. You're going to need a concentrated fuel stabilizer. I've picked this up from Canadian Tire here in the GTA in the Toronto area. You're also going to need a fogging oil, which goes in the cylinder. So this is for the cylinder. This is for the gas tank. Obviously, have my cherry can full of fuel over here, and the only tool that I'm going to need for this really is one of these bad boys. And I'm going to come in real close so you can kind of take a close look at the inside of it. But if you look inside that socket, it's got a little rubber stopper in there, and that's to make sure you don't break your spark plug when you're pulling it out. I've seen guys use spark plug sockets, sockets that aren't rubberized on the inside, and you can still get them out, but the probability of you breaking it is going to be quite high. So first step is we need to fill up the gas tank with fuel stabilizer. I've already figured out exactly what I need to measure in for this. On the back of this bottle, it tells you exactly what concentration you need for the size of the fuel tank. So you're going to need to figure that out on your own and decide. The owner's manual will tell you the fuel capacity. For the most part, if it doesn't, most fuel tanks on small engines are about 1 liter. Sometimes a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller, but just take a water bottle and take a look at it if you're not sure about the total volume. And then you're going to go ahead and measure out the amount of stabilizer. So for this, I've already got it measured out. I know exactly what I need for this. They always have a seal on the top of these things, so we're just going to poke this out with a quick little socket over here. I'm going to open up the top here. You want to ideally fill up or put this in your tank when it's empty, because if you're putting it in when it's full, it's not going to mix very well. So I'm going to drop that in here. And I shouldn't have to show you a close-up of how to pour something into a gas tank. It should be obvious, but so I've got my fuel stabilizer measured out. Now the next step is I'm going to grab my cherry can here, and I'm going to put my nozzle on and fill up the fuel tank. Now once I've filled it up, as I'm filling it up with the gasoline, it's going to start, mixing in the tank, but that's not quite enough, because to have the fuel stabilizer just in the gas tank will only protect the fuel in the tank. It will not protect any fuel that's in the carburetor or in the fuel line. So we're going to have to start it up for a couple of minutes, maybe a minute tops, and that should get the fuel through the carburetor and into the cylinder. So I'm going to fill this up right now. All right, and that is full. Close that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this part out, but I'm going to run the motor for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half or so, just to make sure all the fuel gets into the carburetor, fuel lines, and burn through the cylinder. Close this back up, and we'll run this for a couple minutes, and we'll cut back, and I'll show you what to do with the fogging system to put into the cylinder. All right, so the next step, now that we've run this, you can hear the motor cooling now. I ran it for about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes tops. Pretty much guaranteed all the fuel stabilizer, or all the fuel that's been drenched in fuel stabilizers now I've obviously through the entire fuel system, so it's going to do what it's supposed to do, which is protect the engine from water and the fuel ruining over time. It just stabilizes it so that by the time I start it up in the winter and I first run the snowblower, it should run quite easily, and there shouldn't be too much deterioration or wear as it's sitting. So I've got my spark plug socket over here, and what I'll do is I'll just grab the camera and give you a quick close-up at it. So over here on the engine, you're always going to see a spark plug wire, and that's what this is over here. Now this is going to be quite warm because I just had the engine running. So I'm gonna grab my rag and I'm just gonna reach in here and it should just pop off. I'm gonna just put this down for a second. And it just pops off if you give it a little pull. And you can see inside here that it's just a rubberized device with a little metal thing on the end. And I'll just give you a quick close-up of what the top of the spark plug looks like. So right over there, that's the spark plug. So that's the next thing that we're gonna pull out with the socket. So let's just put this back over here. Our socket's set up. If you're not familiar, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So we're gonna make sure we turn this thing counterclockwise. Just drop it in there. Make sure you don't get too close to anything hot. Give it a turn. Might be a little stiff. I gotta be careful because the engine's quite warm still. And right over here is the exhaust manifold. So that's where all the hot air, or all the combusted hot air comes out. There we go. Now, by the time I always find with spark plugs, by the time you loosen them, they come out quite easy. Gotta be super careful because that is hot. I'm gonna use this. Okay, and that's the spark plug. It came out. It's still in pretty good condition. You may want to replace these. I'm gonna say every 2 to 3 years. I mean, they don't get a lot of mileage. This is just normal carbon buildup, and I don't see any corrosion on it, so it looks pretty good. Normally, if you see corrosion, you'll see like white, or if it's running really, really rich, you're gonna see some oily or richness on the tip of the spark plug, but it's really just black and covered in carbon, so that's totally fine. So we're gonna keep that one for another year. And the last thing you do is open up the can. You're gonna pull off your nozzle extender here, pop it in, and it says on the side of the can to spray into the cylinder for about 10 to 15 seconds. So let's give it a quick shake. Make sure we get a good stream, which we do. And let's put it right in here and give it a good 10 to 15 seconds. All right, that's good. We don't even need anything more than that. That was about 5 seconds and there's a lot of spray, so I don't want to overdo it. The whole point of this is really just to get something into the cylinder that's going to prevent it from corroding over the winter while it's sitting. Because as these things don't run, that's when they tend to corrode. Okay, so we're done with our tools here. The next step is we have to pull on the starting cord to get the cylinder to go up and down in the cylinder sleeve, just so that all the fluid kind of distributes itself everywhere. So let's just give this a quick pull. All right, kids, it looks like I dropped my mic pack, and I'm gonna have to do the rest of this as a voiceover. There's no point in taking out the snowblower and recording this all over again, but such is life when you record for YouTube. So I'm just gonna pull the starter cord here a couple of times nice and slow, and that'll just make sure that the cylinder moves up and down in the sleeve and distributes all the fluid in the combustion chamber. And now that we're back down, we're going to reinsert the spark plug back into the cylinder. Obviously you got to screw it back in, so I'm just cleaning off the tip of the spark plug right now. Insert into the cylinder. Just hand thread it. Of course, you got to watch the exhaust manifold. I do recall this being quite hot at the time, so I had to be ginger as I was maneuvering around here. And once you've got the spark plug threaded in, you're just going to give it a nice snugging with your ratchet set. You don't want to go too tight when you're dealing with spark plugs because they have a very light metal washer around them. And if you tighten them way too tight, then they will crack quite easily. So you basically keep ratcheting it in until you make contact on the metal washer, and then you don't need much more after that. It's just a slight, maybe like anywhere from 1/10 to 1/16 turn once you make contact. I'm still tightening it up here. Okay, and as you can see, I just made contact with the washer, so I just gave it a quick snug turn, and it's nice and tight and where it should be. And then we're going to reinstall the spark plug boot. All right, and that's about it. So that's how I'd go about storing a small engine. You can use this for lawnmowers, snowblowers, anything that's a small 4-stroke engine is what I'm doing here. Hope this video helps. Make sure you smash the thumbs up and leave me a comment below if you have a topic suggestion for a potential future video. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.